everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about specific candle patterns to watch for. So in TradingView, there's an actual indicator that's called all candlestick patterns. Okay, so if you click it, there's only going to be about maybe 5 of those indicators that are visible, right? So I'll show you what it looks like when you click all of them. It's super messy. All right, you don't really want to be trading like this every single potential candle pattern that appears, right? It's not going to mean anything to you, right? There are certain ones that are more important than others, and let's go through the list. All right, so you can Google image candle patterns and what the popular ones are. This is just a great indicator to show you that you don't even have to look for them. It will highlight exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so me personally, I'll just leave the ones that I like still on. Okay, we like the engulfing, evening stars, falling, don't care about that one, don't care, gravestone, sure, don't care that. No, and hammers, sure. Don't care about those, that. The morning stars I like. Rising 3, no. Shooting star, no. Spinning top, very good to have. No. Alright, that's just what I prefer. I like dojis, I like spinning tops, I like engulfing candles, and the morning and evening stars. They are, in my opinion, the strongest indicators that have the highest percentage of success when it comes to the particular pattern that follows after those candles. Okay, so I'll just leave those on. And then you see neutral, right? Neutral is the gray that's outlined. So spinning top, bearish engulfing is the red, bullish engulfing is the green. So the thing is, it's only gonna indicate to you the green and the red, or sorry, the blue and the red in this case, when it's a bullish or bearish engulfing candle only. Everything else shows up as gray. But what you need to understand is these candle patterns, when you see them, it will really give you a lot of information, right? So let's switch over to the 1 hour time frame, and we'll just zoom in on a chunk right here, okay? Just to explain what's happening and what they actually are. So D, doji, right? That's what a doji looks like. It's just a long wick with a tiny candle body in the center. So, you know, you see spinning top black, spinning top white. That's really just, it's almost the exact same thing as a doji, but it is a slightly thicker body on the candle, right? So you see this one is, I'll just zoom in a little bit more. Okay. So as you see, this one is very small, and compared to the spinning top, that is a little thicker, right? But the spinning top also has smaller wicks. So that is really the big difference between a doji and a spinning top. If you just, one way or another, I mean, if you see a doji or a spinning top and you confuse one or the other, it doesn't matter, right? Very likely the same pattern is going to form right after anyway, okay? So that's just what they look like, right? So you see a bunch of Ds and STBs and STWs, that's what it is, right? Spinning tops and dojis. And the reason why I highlight both of them is, as you can see, they're almost the exact same thing, right? So I'd rather just leave that on. And typically what doji candles tell me is that there's indecision in the market on that time frame, okay? So for example here, it wants to go down, but then it went down, end up, and kind of ended where that candle opened, right? So we don't really know for sure where the next candle is going to go. Very likely it's a little bit of resistance when it goes all the way down and comes back where that candle opened. So it's showing that there's a potential interest for it to start climbing, but momentarily, right? It doesn't mean that that's the reversal. It just means that it's a possibility that this is going to temporarily shift in its direction. Okay, and same with the spinning tops. That's what it really signifies. So as you can see, it had a slight pullback, and then that wick dropped. The next one went down, or went up and slightly down, and it closed almost where it opened, but slightly lower. And then the next candles were red. Right? This one is also kind of important for me. It's not really highlighted, but when I see a gigantic wick and it closes the opposite color of the previous candle, that also tells me that there's a potential for a reversal. And sure enough, you know, it wasn't huge, but as you see from where this candle closed, it did start climbing about 35 pips or so before dropping back down, right? But originally it dropped 20 pips and then closed off that gap and, you know, closed about 2 pips higher than before. So not huge by any means, but it's still valuable to understand what those patterns are to look like. Okay, so yeah, it's not called a doji or a spinning top, but when you see a gigantic wick with a small body, you know, in the opposite direction of the previous candle, keep an eye on those too. Right? That's why I personally, I don't use these indicators. I've just trained myself to be able to recognize them when I look at a chart at a specific time frame. Okay, so here we go. Now, bearish engulfing, so you can see it's just a big candle after the previous one of a different color. That's all. Right? So this is the funny thing, because look, here's a bearish engulfing. This is also a bearish engulfing, but technically this is a bullish engulfing, right? So let's just kind of paint this. So here we go. This is bearish. Okay. This is bullish. And then this is bearish again. This one right here. Right? So you can kind of tell that when the indicators label a bearish engulfing candle, I mean, great. We can call 3 different engulfing candles just off that the 4 candles right here, right? So like I said, indicators, good to kind of learn off of, but you'll be able to spot them a lot more with practice. Okay, so see spinning top, thicker candle body, but the wick is almost even on both ends. Right, and like I said, typical spinning tops show indecision in the market, and then it dropped further down. Right, so spinning top, the indecision was the climb upwards. Right, it just kind of went up slightly more, and the next one kind of went up, didn't beat the previous peak of where that wick is, and then it started dropping. Right, so good to kind of see, and it rejected off that EMA. Let's see. So spinning top white, so you can see this is a much larger candle body, but the reason why it tags it as a spinning top is because of the wicks that are pretty much the same size from the top and bottom of that particular candle. Okay, I would not indicate it at that. It's just, this is the algorithm that's running in this particular program. Right, so it's, even though the candle body is much larger than I would call it a spinning top, it still classifies it as that because of the wicks. Right, so you see the doji, tiny body, almost non-existent, and big wick up and down. Right, and it doesn't necessarily have to be even, as you see how this one got tagged. Right, and look, doji doesn't have to be even, but I'm wondering why it's considered a doji and not, and not a spinning top. Right, so now you know why I would highlight both of them. Right, so another doji, another doji, another doji. Now look, this, I would consider that a doji as well, but it's not being tagged. What can you do? Right, another doji. So you see this one has a smaller wick on top and a larger one on the bottom. This one's kind of reverse, and it's still the exact same candle size, but it's not tagged. So I'm just saying, these indicators aren't flawless by any means, but they definitely help, right? So you will probably get used to doing, or used to being able to pick them up. Now, inverted hammers. So what that means is that there is just no wick on one side of that candle, and it is Inverted, I guess it just means upside down, right? So a hammer candle, if we find one, it'll be red top on the body and just a wick down. There won't be any wick on the top of it. Okay, so another inverted hammer, so you can see no wick on the bottom of that candle. Maybe we'll be able to point one normal hammer. So see, that's exactly what I was saying. Hammer candle is red, and right above it there is no wick, right? Or I mean, it looks like a tiny little dot there, but this is considered no wick. So hammer candles, what they signify is a very strong potential for a reversal of that particular trend, right? So inverted hammer, let's see how this one looked, right? It was going down, and then we see the inverted hammer showing that there is a potential interest for this to move upwards, right? I mean, it didn't really do that. It just kind of went sideways, but it did stop that trend. You see, it didn't really drop below the closing of this candle right here until finally we had that engulfing one here. Okay. Now this hammer candle, so you can see that it kept dropping, and then it dropped here and kind of formed there, but there is no wick on top, right? So that showed that it moved down, but it started climbing back up before that candle actually closed. So you know what? Let's do a replay so you can see this on a smaller time frame. All right, so that's the candle right there. Let's switch that to the 5 minute so you can see how it played out. All right, so the 1 hour will be here from 55 to 55, right? So this is the 1 hour time frame that we see. Okay, so I wouldn't pay attention to the 5 minute. It's not, you don't want to be really doing that so much, especially if you're going off of the 1 hour, right? I wouldn't be taking candle patterns on a smaller time frame if you're focused on a larger one already. But as you see, what really happened down there is it dropped and then it reversed right here. So that's the reason it kind of gave you a pattern of, hey, you know what, this is the trend is over, and it's showing on the smaller time frames that it wants to continue upwards, right? So if we keep moving on with the 5 minutes, you see an EMA shift on the 5 minute time frame. I'll switch it back to the 1 hour, and then that's what we have. So there's your hammer, right? This candle right there, and then right after it's the bullish engulfing. So yeah, that I'll exit the replay now, and that's really what it signifies. I'm not saying it's going to happen every single time you see that candle pattern, but there's a higher probability of it actually reversing if you see that happen, right? Doesn't mean it's going to happen 100%. It's just a higher probability, right? And then more dojis and spinning tops, and that's it, right? So those are really the ones that I would focus on. Oh, actually, there was the morning star and evening star. How can we find those? So this, not exactly the stars that you're looking for, but really what it is man, if I can only just draw this up, actually. It's a similar pattern to this. The only problem is that this candle, it's not supposed to have a wick. It's just supposed to be a tiny body. And the following candle here should be the same size or larger of the previous long green candle here, right? So that would be morning, evening star patterns, right? You can call it MES, so pick out both of them. But again, evening star is at the top, morning star is on the bottom, right? Evening and morning kind of makes sense. One is at the peak before it sets, and the other one is in the morning, right at the bottom before it rises, right? So here's a good example. Even though it says spinning top, this would be pretty close if this candle was slightly larger, okay? Let's see if we can pick a couple more out, because the indicator isn't really showing. I'm just going to hide it. There's no sense in having it run if it doesn't pick up everything. Okay, that's a pretty good candle pattern right there to see, right? Unfortunately, it didn't play out as expected because that typical candle pattern switches the trend, right? There's a very high probability that that happens. But like I said, this candle needs to be longer than the green one for that to actually make sense. Okay, it doesn't count if it's a smaller candle than that one. But we do see a lot of engulfings, right? Like that. If only we can find a good example. Maybe USD JPY isn't the right one to go with. Actually, that's not bad, right? Not quite what I'd be looking for, but that candle pattern is pretty good to see, right? It's just in the wrong pattern to follow afterwards, so that kind of sucks. But that one's pretty close. Not quite. Where see, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it is very good to see. EMAs have a pretty significant role to play in it too, right? So if you see, oh man, if only I can pick it out. If it's a very long wick on a doji, right, that hits the EMA and you got that candle pattern, the long green and long red on either side of that doji, especially if that doji touches another EMA line, that is almost guaranteed to be a reversal. I think that's the highest percentage of like 92%, 92% chance that it plays out that way. If only I could find it. It's not really all that fantastic to look at this particular pair. You know what? Let me switch up to Euro AUD. Let's see how this one looks. Because USD JPY is kind of gross right now. It's not showing me what I want to see. This one's much more volatile, so let's see if we can pick something out. And again, if you see it on the smaller time frames, that's good too. Technically, this candle pattern is very close. It wouldn't be considered an evening star, but it is more of a fractal where you have long, short, short, and long afterwards. Right? This is actually a fantastic candle pattern setup. When you see a gigantic wick like this and then it drops and then the following candle is red, very, very strong chance that this trend continues. Like this, you see, this is the setup that I was looking for before. Right here, the 3 candle patterns, right? To say that the wick is a little long, that's whatever, but that's the pattern that I'm looking for, right? Big body, small body, larger body. Right, so these 2 candle patterns are the perfect thing to watch for when it comes to trends or reversals. Once you see those, it's very, very likely that the next candles or even the next couple of candles will move in the same direction. Okay, let's see if we can find a couple more. Oh, yeah, see, here you go. Here's another. Right, there you go. And that's even better too because the EMA actually hasn't shifted down, right? So as soon as that one closes, it's a very strong possibility that it's going to continue upwards, which it did. Okay. So let's see if we can, oh, here's another one, right? It's a little smaller, but you get the idea, right? You see that gigantic wick on this candle, right? Like I would personally call that just a long doji, but the candle pattern itself, it's even though it's a smaller body here, it's a tiny one and then a larger one, right? So those 3 candles is the setup we'd be looking for. And sure enough, it keeps dropping, right? And oh look, what comes shortly after? Same thing, right? Long body, tiny body, huge body, right? Or larger than the previous green here. Right? Perfect setup. Similar to that one. Look how often it plays out. Right? Next candle, red. Next candle, red. 2, 3, several times. And you see what I was talking about. If the candle isn't greater than this one right here, it tends to continue on with its trend. But if this one would be larger, there's a strong possibility that this would be a short-term reversal. Okay. Let's see if we can find at least one more. Oh, here we go. Look at this one. Another perfect kind of setup right here. You got big body, tiny body with large wick, and then huge body afterwards. Right? So here you go. That's another setup. Next candle, red. right? I mean, it wouldn't be a fantastic situation because this was a little volatile, right? So it would have been good to go 38 pips first and then negative 16 and a half, almost 17, right? Too bad if you put your stop loss to break even. You know, it's unfortunate, but this was a very nice setup for it to continue going down, right? It is what it is. Sometimes it happens that you just get knocked out due to volatility, and maybe you should have risked a larger stop loss. Who knows, right? There's lots of things that can happen. Okay, let's see if we can find just one more, right? Just one more, but you get the idea, right? This is what you want to be looking for. These are fantastic candle patterns to keep an eye on, and once you get accustomed to finding them, it's going to make life so much easier. When, oh, here's another one. Look at this. Look at this guy. Gorgeous, right? Exactly what I was saying. Kind of breaks through, wicks off a few EMAs, and then larger engulfing candle afterwards. So once you're able to pick them up, it's going to make it so much easier to understand how trades are going and to kind of continue on with your actual trade, right? You don't have to exit so early. We have another one here, but that one is pretty small, right? Like if we had, it still does what it needs to do. It's just not like if I'd see something like this, but it doesn't break a previous peak, then I'd be pretty well thinking that it's this move is over, right? But you get the idea. Large, small, larger. Okay. So that's my favorite candle pattern actually to see. I call that you know, the morning star or evening star, whichever, right? Depends on where this one is. And yeah, it's not the perfect star because it's not a tiny body without any wicks. But this is what I still consider that the same candle pattern, and that's the one I look for the most. It seems to have the highest success rate. All right. I hope that's been helpful, everybody. That's just been the a brief candle pattern tutorial, right? And if you want to start as a beginner, kind of identifying them or having a little bit of help with identification, just pop this one on. You know, it'll give you the flags that you need to identify some of them a little bit more generic until you actually become very good at finding them on your own. All right. So I hope that it's been helpful, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.